The morning sun beat down on the busy construction site in downtown Chicago. Dust flew in the air as trucks moved back and forth. Workers in yellow hard hats and orange vests worked on the tall building that was slowly taking shape. This was the future home of Maxwell Technologies, a company worth billions of dollars. At exactly 9:30 a.m., a black Mercedes pulled up to the site. The car door opened and John Maxwell stepped out. He was 47 years old with salt and pepper hair cut short and neat. His dark blue suit looked expensive and fit him perfectly. John was the CEO of Maxwell Technologies, and he was not happy today. 3 weeks behind schedule, he muttered as he looked at the building. His company was paying $80 million for this new headquarters, and time was money. John walked toward the site office, his shiny leather shoes getting dusty with each step. As he walked, John heard something that made him stop. A deep voice was speaking in perfect Mandarin Chinese. John had spent enough time in China to know the language when he heard it. He turned to see who was speaking. The voice belonged to a tall, strong-looking black man in a construction uniform. The man was talking to one of the Chinese engineers, who was nodding and smiling. John watched as they finished their conversation, and then something even more surprising happened. The same worker turned to another group and began speaking rapid Spanish. He was giving instructions to a team of Latino workers, who responded to him with respect and understanding. John stood still, watching with growing interest. The construction worker then pulled a phone from his pocket. It rang loudly over the noise of the site. The man answered it and began speaking what sounded like perfect French. Bonjour, oui, je comprends. Je serai là ce weekend, the worker said into the phone before hanging up. He put his phone away and went back to directing the work crew. John had never seen anything like this. In his world of corporate executives and business school graduates, he knew many people who spoke 2 or 3 languages, but a construction worker speaking at least 3 languages fluently? This was unusual. John decided to learn more. He changed direction and walked toward the worker, who was now checking something on a blueprint. Excuse me, John said. The worker looked up. He was around 35 years old with kind eyes and a strong jawline. Sweat glistened on his forehead from the morning heat. Yes, sir? This area is restricted. Do you have clearance to be on site? The worker asked politely but firmly. John smiled. I'm John Maxwell. This is my building. The worker's eyes widened, slightly in recognition. He straightened up immediately. Mr. Maxwell, sir, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you. Darnell Washington. He wiped his right hand on his pants before offering it for a handshake. John shook Darnell's hand firmly. No need to apologize. I don't visit the site often enough. There was a moment of awkward silence. Darnell waited for John to explain why. The CEO of a major technology company was talking to him. I couldn't help but notice your language skills, John finally said. I heard you speaking Mandarin, Spanish, and French just now. Darnell looked slightly embarrassed. Yes, sir. It helps. With the job, we have workers from all over. How many languages do you speak, Mr. Washington? John asked directly. Darnell hesitated as if he wasn't used to talking about himself. 9, sir. 9, John repeated, not hiding his surprise. 9 languages? Darnell nodded. Yes, sir. English, Spanish, Mandarin, French, Arabic, Russian, Portuguese, German, and Swahili. John was speechless for a moment. He had met diplomats and international business experts who didn't speak that many languages. That's remarkable, John said honestly. Where did you learn all these languages? Before Darnell could answer, a loud crash came from the other side of the site. Everyone turned to look. A supply truck had backed into some scaffolding. No one seemed hurt, but workers were rushing to check the damage. I need to help with that, Mr. Maxwell, Darnell said, already moving toward the accident. Wait, John called after him. I'd like to continue this conversation. Are you free for lunch today? Darnell looked surprised at the invitation. Lunch? With you, sir? Yes, my treat. I'm very interested in hearing more about your language skills. Darnell thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, sir, I have a break at 12:30. Perfect. Meet me at Joe's Deli across the street at 12:30, John said. I'll be there, Darnell replied before jogging toward the accident site. John watched him go. intrigued by this man who seemed so out of place yet so confident. In John's experience, exceptional talents could be found anywhere. He had built his company by finding the right people for the right jobs. Something told him Darnell Washington might be one of those special discoveries. At 12:30 sharp, John sat at a corner table in Joe's Deli. The small restaurant was busy with the lunch crowd, construction workers, office employees, and delivery. Drivers all came here for the famous sandwiches and quick service. John checked his watch. He had 3 meetings that afternoon and a dinner with investors in the evening. His assistant had called twice already, reminding him about urgent matters that needed his attention. But John was more interested in learning about the construction worker who spoke 9 languages. The bell above the deli door rang, and Darnell walked in. He had changed from his dusty work shirt into a clean blue t-shirt, though he still wore his work pants and boots. He looked around until he spotted John, then walked over. "Mr. Maxwell," Darnell said with a nod. "Please call me John," he replied, standing to shake Darnell's hand again. "Have a seat." Darnell sat down across from John. He seemed uncomfortable, his large frame looking out of place at the small table. "I ordered us both the special," John said. "Hope you like pastrami." "Thank you, sir. John. Pastrami's fine." A waitress brought over 2 large sandwiches and 2 sodas. John thanked her and then turned his attention back to Darnell. "So, 9 languages," John said, picking up where they had left off. "That's extraordinary. Where did you learn them all?" Darnell took a sip of his soda before answering. "Mostly on my own. My mother was a librarian in Detroit where I grew up. Our neighborhood wasn't great, but we always had books at home." "Self-taught?" John asked, even more impressed. "All 9 languages?" "I took Spanish in high school," Darnell explained. "I was good at it. My mother noticed and brought home more language books from the library. I just kept going." "And the others?" John asked between bites of his sandwich. "I made friends with international students at Wayne State University. They were happy to practice English with me, and I learned their languages in return. The internet helped too. There are so many free resources online." John nodded, thinking about the thousands of dollars his company spent on language training for executives. "Did you go to college?" John asked. A shadow passed over Darnell's face. "No, I wanted to, but my mother got sick when I was 19. Multiple sclerosis. I had 2 younger siblings too. Someone had to work and take care of everyone. I'm sorry to hear that," John said sincerely. Darnell shrugged. "Life happens. I got a job in construction because it paid well. I've been doing it for 15 years now." "And your language skills help on the job?" John asked. "All the time," Darnell said, his face brightening. "Construction sites are like little United Nations meetings. We have workers from everywhere. When people can speak their own language, work goes faster and safer." "How did you end up on my company's project?" John asked. "I go where the work is," Darnell replied simply. "I've been with Jones Construction for 7 years. They put me on this job 3 months ago." John took another bite of his sandwich, thinking, "Do you ever use your languages outside of work?" Darnell smiled for the first time. "I volunteer as a translator at the community center on weekends, help people fill out forms, go to doctor appointments, that kind of thing." John was about to, ask another question when his phone rang. He checked the screen and frowned. "I'm sorry, I need to take this." While John talked on the phone, Darnell finished his sandwich. John could see him looking around the deli, listening to the different conversations happening around them. A group of Italian tourists was at the counter, struggling to order. Darnell seemed to be following their conversation with interest. John finished his call and put his phone down. "Sorry about that. Where were we?" Darnell glanced at his watch. "Actually, I should get back to the site soon. My break ends at 1:15. John nodded. "Of course, thank you for joining me, Darnell. I've enjoyed our conversation." As they both stood up, John had a thought. "One more question, if you don't mind. Have you ever considered a career that makes better use of your language skills?" Darnell looked surprised. "Like what?" "Translation, international business, diplomacy. There are many fields where multilingual people are highly valued. Sure, I've thought about it, Darnell said. But those jobs need degrees and connections, things I don't have. John pulled out a business card and handed it to Darnell. Perhaps. Or perhaps they just need the right opportunity. Darnell looked at the card, then carefully put it in his wallet. Thank you for lunch, Mr. Maxwell. John, he corrected with a smile. And thank you for your time. I have a feeling we'll talk again soon. As Darnell walked back to the construction site, John watched him go. His mind was already working on an idea. Maxwell Technologies was expanding into new international markets. They needed people who could bridge cultural and language gaps. People exactly like Darnell. The next morning, John Maxwell sat in his large office on the top floor of the Maxwell Technologies building. Through the wide windows, he could see the construction site of the new headquarters. Workers moved like ants from this distance. Somewhere, down there, Darnell Washington was probably speaking one of his 9 languages. John's assistant, Susan Bell, knocked on the door and entered. She was in her 50s with short gray hair and glasses. Susan had been with John since he started the company 15 years ago. The meeting is ready, sir, Susan said. HR Director Kate Wilson and Greg Peterson from International Relations are waiting in the conference room. Thank you, Susan, John said, standing up. He grabbed a folder from his desk and followed Susan down the hall. In the conference room, Kate and Greg stood up when John entered. Kate was a serious woman with dark hair pulled back tightly. Greg was younger, with blonde hair and a friendly smile. Both looked curious about this sudden meeting. Good morning, John said as he sat down at the head of the table. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Of course, John, Kate said. Your message sounded important. John opened his folder. Yesterday I met someone interesting at our construction site, a worker named Darnell Washington. He speaks 9 languages fluently. Greg raised his eyebrows. 9, that's impressive. Very, John agreed. He speaks English, Spanish, Mandarin, French, Arabic, Russian, Portuguese, German, and Swahili, all self-taught except for Spanish, which he learned in high school. That is remarkable, Kate said. But why are we discussing a construction worker? John leaned forward. Because I want to hire him for our company, not as a construction worker, but in a new position, International Communications Director. Kate and Greg exchanged surprised looks. John, Kate said carefully, we already have a team that handles international communications. They all have degrees in business or communications and years of experience, and none of them speak 9 languages, John replied. Our company is expanding into new markets in Africa, Asia, and South America. We need someone who can help us navigate language barriers and cultural differences. Greg nodded slowly. He could be useful. But does he have any business experience? Any corporate background at all? No, John admitted. He's been working construction for 15 years. Before that, he cared for his sick mother and younger siblings. Kate frowned. John, I understand you're impressed with his language skills, but creating an executive position for someone with no qualifications is risky. Our shareholders would question it. John understood their concerns. They were valid, but he also trusted his instincts. Those instincts had helped him build a billion-dollar company from nothing. I'm not suggesting we make him an executive right away, John explained. I want to offer him a 6-month trial period. We'll provide training and mentorship. If it doesn't work out, no harm done. If it does, we gain a valuable team member with unique skills. Kate still looked doubtful. What salary are you thinking? John named a figure that was 4 times what a construction worker typically earned, but still less than most middle managers at the company. That's generous for someone with no experience, Kate said. It's fair for someone with his language skills, John countered. And it's a fraction of what we pay outside translators and cultural consultants. Greg was warming to the idea. It could work. We're always talking about thinking outside the box. This is definitely outside the box. Kate sighed. It's your company, John. If you want to take this chance, I'll support it. But I recommend a detailed training plan and clear performance goals. Agreed, John said with a smile. Greg, can you work with your team to create a training program? Kate, please prepare a job offer and contract with a 6-month trial period. They both nodded and made notes. When do you want to speak to him? Kate asked. Today, John replied. I'll go to the construction site this afternoon. The meeting ended, and John returned to his office. He looked out at the construction site again. Was he making a mistake? Taking too big a risk? Perhaps. But something told him Darnell Washington was special. Sometimes in business, you had to trust your gut. At 2:03 p.m., John's car pulled up to the construction site again. He wore a more casual outfit today, slacks and a button-up shirt with no tie. He didn't want to appear too formal. John asked the site manager where he could find Darnell Washington. The manager pointed to the east side of the building where Darnell was checking some electrical work with a team. John walked over, careful to avoid the muddy areas from last night's rain. Darnell was speaking Russian with an electrician. When he saw John approaching, he looked surprised. Mr. Maxwell, Darnell said, switching to English. I didn't expect to see you again so soon. I told you to call me John, he reminded him with a smile. Do you have a few minutes to talk privately? Darnell nodded. Let me tell my supervisor. He walked over to another worker, spoke briefly, then returned to John. We can use the break room in the trailer. It should be empty now. They walked to a small trailer at the edge of the site. Inside was a simple room with a table, some chairs, a refrigerator, and a microwave. They sat across from each other at the table. How's the accident cleanup going? John asked, referring to yesterday's incident. All fixed, Darnell said. No one was hurt, just some damaged materials. We made up the lost time already. John nodded, then decided to get to the point. Darnell, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, about your language skills, and how they might be better used. Darnell's expression was careful, guarded. Yes? I'd like to offer you a job at Maxwell Technologies, John said directly. A new position, International Communications Director. Darnell's eyes widened. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, clearly shocked. I don't understand, he finally said. I'm a construction worker. I don't know anything about corporate jobs. You know languages and people, John replied. The rest can be learned. My company is expanding globally. We need someone who can help us communicate effectively across cultures and languages. Someone like you. Darnell shook his head slowly. Mr. Maxwell, John, I appreciate the offer. It's very generous, but I don't have a college degree. I've never worked in an office. I wouldn't fit in. Education comes in many forms, John said. You've educated yourself in ways most people with multiple degrees never achieve. As for fitting in, that's not what I'm looking for. I want someone who stands out, who brings something new to the table. John explained his proposal, a 6-month trial period with training and mentorship. He mentioned the salary, which was significantly higher than what Darnell currently earned. Darnell listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. Why me? Why would you take this chance? Because talent shouldn't be wasted, John said simply. I built my company by finding the right people for the right jobs. Sometimes those people come from unexpected places. Darnell was quiet for a long moment. My mother needs special care for her MS. My younger sister is in college. This salary would help them both. Think about it, John said, handing Darnell an envelope. This has all the details of the offer. You can call me anytime with questions. He placed his personal card on the table. This is a lot to process, Darnell said honestly. Take the weekend, John suggested. Let me know your decision by Monday. They stood up and shook hands. As John turned to leave, Darnell called after him. John, thank you. No matter what I decide, thank you for seeing something in me. John smiled. Thank you for reminding me to look. As John drove back to his office, he felt good about the offer. Even if Darnell declined, John had followed his instincts. And if Darnell accepted? Well, that could be the beginning of something interesting. Back at the construction site, Darnell sat alone in the break room, staring at the envelope in his hands. His whole life could change if he accepted this offer. It was exciting and terrifying at the same time. His phone rang. It was his sister Lisa calling from college. "Hey, big brother," she said when he answered. "Just checking in. How's work?" Darnell looked at the envelope again. "Actually, something incredible just happened. You won't believe it." "Try me," Lisa said. As Darnell began to tell her about John Maxwell and the job offer, he felt a growing sense that his life was about to change in ways he never imagined. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to dream of new possibilities. The weekend passed slowly for Darnell. He read the job offer papers from John Maxwell at least 20 times. The salary number still shocked him every time he saw it. It was more money than he had ever made, enough to move his mother to a better care facility and help his sister finish college without student loans. On Saturday, Darnell visited his mother at Green Pines Care Center. It was a basic facility, clean but understaffed. His mother, Evelyn Washington, was only 58 but looked much older. Multiple sclerosis had taken its toll on her body, but her mind was still sharp. "You seem distracted today," Evelyn said as Darnell sat beside her wheelchair near the window. "What's on your mind, son?" Darnell took a deep breath and told her about John Maxwell and the job offer. As he spoke, his mother's eyes grew wider. "9 languages," she said when he finished. "All those books we read together, all those language tapes from the library. I always knew they would lead to something special. But Mom, I don't know if I can do this job," Darnell admitted. "I've never worked in an office. I don't have a college degree." Evelyn reached out and took her son's hand. Her fingers were thin, but her grip was strong. "Darnell James Washington, when you were 8 years old, you taught yourself to fix our old TV by reading repair manuals. When you were 12, you learned Spanish in 3 months to help Mrs. Rodriguez next door when she got sick. You can learn anything you set your mind to." "This is different," Darnell said. "This is a big company with important people." "And what are you?" Evelyn asked with a raised eyebrow. "Not important?" Darnell smiled. His mother always knew how to challenge him. "Mr. Maxwell sees something in you," she continued. "Sometimes others see things in us that we can't see in ourselves. That's a gift. Don't reject it." On Sunday, Darnell called his sister Lisa. She was 21 and studying nursing at the state university. "You have to take the job," Lisa said immediately. "This is the chance of a lifetime." "What if I fail?" Darnell asked. "What if I make a fool of myself?" "Then you fail," Lisa said simply. "But at least you tried, and you can always go back to construction if it doesn't work out." By Sunday night, Darnell had made his decision. He called the number on John Maxwell's card. It went to voicemail, and Darnell left a brief message. "This is Darnell Washington. I'd like to accept your offer. Thank you for the opportunity." Monday morning came with heavy rain. Darnell arrived at the construction site early to speak with his supervisor, a tough old man named Frank. "So you're leaving us," Frank said after. Darnell explained the situation. They stood under the site trailer's small roof watching the rainfall. "Yes, sir. 2 weeks' notice as required." Frank nodded. "Can't say I blame you. That's a hell of an opportunity." He looked at Darnell. "I always knew you were too smart for this job. All those languages, the way you solve problems. I've learned a lot here," Darnell said sincerely. "You've been a good boss." Frank slapped him on the shoulder. "Go show those office people what you can do. Make us proud." At 9:15, Darnell's phone rang. It was John Maxwell. "Darnell, I got your message. I'm glad you're accepting the position." "Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity." "Excellent. Can you come to our office today at 4:00? Kate from HR will have paperwork for you to sign, and we can discuss your start date." "I'll be there," Darnell said. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Darnell's co-workers congratulated him when they heard the news. Some seemed genuinely happy for him. Others seemed jealous or doubtful. "Office job? You?" One worker named Pete said with a laugh. "You won't last a month wearing a tie and sitting in meetings. Maybe not, Darnell replied calmly, but I'm going to try. At 3:30, Darnell left the site. He had brought a change of clothes, his best pair of khaki pants and a blue button-up shirt. Not quite business attire, but the best he owned. He changed in the site bathroom and then walked the 6 blocks to the Maxwell Technologies building. The current headquarters was a gleaming glass tower in the business district. Darnell had walked past it many times but never been inside. Now he stood in the lobby, looking up at the high ceiling and fancy artwork on the walls. "Can I help you?" the security guard at the front desk asked. "I'm here to see John Maxwell and Kate Wilson. My name is Darnell Washington." The guard checked his computer, then nodded. "Yes, Mr. Washington. They're expecting you on the 30th floor. Take the elevator on the right." Mr. Washington. It sounded strange to Darnell's ears. On the construction site, he was just Darnell or Washington. Never Mr. The elevator moved smoothly up to the 30th floor. When the doors opened, Darnell stepped into a world very different from construction sites. The floors were shiny marble. The walls had expensive-looking art. People in business suits walked purposefully in every direction. A young woman approached him. "Mr. Washington? I'm Megan, Mr. Maxwell's assistant. Please follow me." She led him to a large conference room where John Maxwell and a woman Darnell assumed was Kate Wilson were waiting. "Darnell, welcome," John said, standing to shake his hand. "This is Kate Wilson, our HR director." Kate gave Darnell a professional smile. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Washington." "Please call me Darnell," he said. They all sat down at the large table. Kate opened a folder of papers. "These are the official job offer documents. 6-month trial period as we discussed, with the possibility of permanent employment after that." Darnell looked over the papers. The position title read, International Communications Director. The salary was the same generous amount John had mentioned. There were benefits too, health insurance, retirement plan, paid vacation. "When would I start?" Darnell asked. "How about 2 weeks from today?" John suggested. "That gives you time to finish up at your current job and prepare for the transition." Darnell nodded and signed the papers. "Excellent," John said with a smile. "Now let me tell you about your training program. For the first month, you'll rotate through different departments to learn how our company works. Greg Peterson from International Relations will be your mentor." Kate spoke next. "We'll also provide business classes, communications, basic accounting, corporate structure, all during work hours, of course." It was a lot to take in. Darnell felt both excited and overwhelmed. "I know this is a big change," John said, seeming to sense Darnell's feelings. "But remember why I hired you. Your language skills and your ability to connect with different kinds of people. Those are rare talents." After the meeting, John walked Darnell back to the elevator. "One more thing," John said. "You'll need business clothes for this job. Use this to get what you need." He handed Darnell an envelope. Later, at home, Darnell opened the envelope. Inside was a company credit card with his name on it and a note that read, "For business expenses. Get yourself a proper wardrobe. John." Darnell sat on his small apartment's worn couch thinking about how much his life had changed in just a few days. From construction worker to corporate employee, from hard hats to business suits. His phone rang. It was his sister Lisa again. "So, how did it go?" she asked eagerly. "I signed the papers," Darnell said. "I start in 2 weeks." Lisa's excited scream made him hold the phone away from his ear. "I'm so proud of you, big brother. Mom is too. I just told her and she cried happy tears." Darnell smiled. "I'm scared, Lisa. What if I can't do this?" "You can," Lisa said firmly. "You've been taking care of me and Mom since you were a teenager. You learned 9 languages on your own. This new job, it's just another challenge, and you always rise to challenges." After they hung up, Darnell walked to his small bedroom closet and looked at his clothes. Work boots, jeans, t-shirts, and his one good outfit that he had worn today. Soon he would need suits, ties, dress shoes, a whole new wardrobe for a whole new life. A new chapter begins, he said to himself, both terrified and excited about what the future might hold. 2 weeks passed quickly. Darnell spent his final days at the construction site saying goodbye to coworkers and finishing his projects. After work and on the weekend, he shopped for business clothes with the company card John had given him. He, too, bought 3 suits, 5 dress shirts, ties, and 2 pairs of leather shoes. The total cost was more than he had ever spent on clothes in his life. On his first day at Maxwell Technologies, Darnell woke up at 5 a.m. even though he didn't need to be at the office until 9 He was too nervous to sleep. He put on his new navy blue suit and looked at himself in the mirror. The man staring back looked different, almost like a stranger. Darnell arrived at the office building at 8:30. The security guard from before recognized him and smiled. "Good morning, Mr. Washington. 30th floor again today." In the elevator, Darnell's stomach felt tight with nerves. What if everyone laughed at him? What if they all thought John Maxwell had made a mistake hiring a construction worker? When the elevator doors opened, Megan was waiting for him. "Good morning, Darnell. You look very professional today. Please follow me to your office." His office. Darnell had never had an office before. Megan led him down a hallway to a medium-sized room with windows looking out over the city. There was a desk with a computer, a bookshelf, and 2 comfortable chairs. On the desk was a nameplate that read Darnell Washington International Communications Director. "This is all mine?" Darnell asked, surprised. "Yes," Megan said with a smile. "Is everything to your liking?" "It's perfect," Darnell replied, running, his hand over the smooth desk. "Mr. Peterson will be here at 9:15 to start your orientation. Mr. Maxwell would like to see you at 9 a.m. in his office." Megan left, and Darnell sat down in his desk chair. It was comfortable and adjusted to his height. Perfectly. On the desk was a welcome package with a company ID card, building access card, employee handbook, and a note from John that read, "Welcome to the team. I know you'll do great things here." At 9 sharp, Darnell knocked on John Maxwell's office. "Door. Come in," John called. John's office was much larger than Darnell's, with a big desk and a sitting area with couches. One wall was covered in awards and photographs of John with famous people, politicians, celebrities, and business leaders. "Darnell." "Good morning," John said, standing to greet him. "How does it feel to be on your first day?" "Honestly, terrifying," Darnell admitted. John laughed. "Good, being a little scared keeps you sharp." He gestured for Darnell to sit in one of the chairs facing his desk. "I wanted to check in before Greg starts your orientation. Any questions before you begin?" Darnell had many questions, but one was most important. "Why did you really hire me?" "John, there must be hundreds of people with business degrees and language skills who would want this job." John leaned back in his chair, thinking for a moment. "When I started this company, I was working out of my garage. No money, no connections, just an idea and determination. Many people told me I would fail because I didn't have the right background. I didn't come from a wealthy family. I didn't go to an Ivy League school." He leaned forward again. "But I succeeded because I worked harder than everyone else. I learned what I needed to know. I refused to give up." John pointed at Darnell. "I see that same determination in you. You taught yourself 9 languages while working full-time and taking care of your family. That shows incredible drive and intelligence." Darnell nodded slowly, taking in John's words. "Besides," John continued with a smile, "sometimes the best ideas come from outside the system. You'll see things differently than someone who has only ever worked in corporate offices. That fresh perspective is valuable to me." A knock on the door interrupted them. It was Greg Peterson, the International Relations Director. He was younger than John, maybe in his mid-30s, with blonde hair and glasses. "Ready to start the tour?" Greg asked Darnell. "Yes, sir," Darnell replied, standing up. "Just Greg, please," he said with a friendly smile. "We're colleagues now." Colleagues. Another new word in Darnell's changing life. The first week was a whirlwind of information. Darnell met dozens of people whose names he struggled to remember. He attended meetings where people used terms and acronyms he didn't understand. Every night he went home and studied the employee handbook and made notes about things he needed to learn. Greg was a patient mentor. He explained how the company worked, introduced Darnell to key team members, and answered his many questions. Darnell's language skills were put to use almost immediately when a problem arose with a Spanish supplier. Darnell spoke with them directly and solved the issue in one phone call. That would have taken us days of back and forth with translators, Greg said, clearly impressed. By the end of the second week, Darnell had his first major assignment. Maxwell Technologies was negotiating a deal with a Chinese manufacturing company. The language barrier was causing problems in the negotiations. I'd like you to join the video call tomorrow, Greg told Darnell. Just listen and tell us if you notice any communication issues. The next day, Darnell sat in on the video conference. 6 Maxwell executives spoke with 4 representatives from the Chinese company. A translator helped both sides communicate. But Darnell could tell that many things were being lost in translation. After the call, Greg asked for Darnell's thoughts. They weren't saying no to the deal, Darnell explained. In Chinese business culture, saying no directly is considered rude. They were politely indicating they wanted to negotiate more on price and delivery timelines. The executives looked at each other, surprised by this insight. Also, Darnell continued, they mentioned a Chinese proverb about crossing the river by feeling the stones. That means they want to proceed carefully, one step at a time. They're interested, but they want to build trust slowly. John Maxwell, who had been sitting quietly at the end of the table, smiled. What would you recommend, Darnell? Darnell thought for a moment. I think we should have a smaller meeting next time, just 2 or 3 people from our side. Make it less formal, and we should acknowledge their concerns about moving too quickly. John nodded. Make it happen. Darnell, I want you to lead the next call. The other executives looked surprised, but no one objected. After 1 month at Maxwell Technologies, Darnell had settled into a routine. He still felt out of place sometimes, especially in large meetings with senior executives. But his confidence grew each time his language skills helped solve a problem. One Friday afternoon, John invited Darnell to lunch. They went to an expensive restaurant near the office where waiters wore bow ties and the menu had no prices listed. How are you finding the job so far? John asked after they ordered. Challenging, Darnell admitted. There's so much to learn, but I'm enjoying it. And the team, how are they treating you? Most people have been welcoming, Darnell said. Some seem unsure about me. I think they wonder why you hired someone without the usual qualifications, John nodded. Change always meets resistance, but results speak louder than resumes. And from what I hear, you're already getting results. Darnell smiled. I moved my mother to a better care facility last weekend. One with more staff and better therapy programs. She has a window with a view of the garden now. That's wonderful, John said sincerely. None of this would have been possible without the opportunity you gave me, Darnell said. Thank you. You earned it, John replied. And this is just the beginning. As they ate lunch, John shared his vision for expanding Maxwell Technologies globally. He wanted to open offices in 5 new countries over the next 3 years. Darnell would play a key role in these plans, helping to bridge cultural and language gaps. I have a big idea, John said as they finished their meal. But it can wait until you've completed your 6-month trial period. What kind of idea? Darnell asked, curious. John smiled mysteriously. Let's just say it involves using your story to help others like you, people with talents that are being overlooked because they don't have traditional credentials. As Darnell walked back to the office with John, he realized how much his life had changed in just 1 month. From hard hat to business suit, from construction site to corporate office, from living paycheck to having savings for the first time. And it all started because someone heard him speaking different languages and saw potential where others saw just another construction worker. Sometimes opportunity came in the most unexpected ways. 5 months passed quickly. Darnell grew more comfortable in his role at Maxwell Technologies. His language skills had helped the company secure deals in China, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia. He now led a small team of 3 people who handled international communications. His office had moved to a larger space on the same floor. One Monday morning, Darnell received an email from John Maxwell's assistant. It read, Mr. Maxwell would like to see you at 2 p.m. today to discuss your 6-month review and future with the company. Darnell felt both excited and nervous. His 6-month trial period was almost over. Had he done enough to prove himself? Would he be offered a permanent position? At 2 p.m., Darnell knocked on John's office door. "Come in," John called. Inside, John was not alone. Kate from HR was there, along with Greg and 3 people Darnell recognized as board members of the company. Everyone looked serious, and Darnell's stomach tightened with worry. "Darnell, please have a seat," John said, gesturing to an empty chair. Darnell sat down, trying to look calm despite his racing heart. "As you know," John began, "your 6-month trial period ends next week. We've been evaluating your performance and contribution to the company." John looked at a folder in front of him. "In the past 5 months, you've helped us secure 3 major international deals. Your language skills have saved us an estimated $300,000 in translation costs, and your cultural insights have prevented at least 2 serious misunderstandings with overseas partners." Darnell nodded, not sure if he should speak. "The question before us today," John continued, "is whether to offer you a permanent position as International Communications Director." The room was silent. The board members watched Darnell with neutral expressions. "Before we make that decision," John said, "we'd like to hear from you. How do you see your future at Maxwell Technologies?" Darnell took a deep breath. This was his moment to speak from the heart. "When I started here," he began, "I was a construction worker who happened to speak 9 languages. I knew nothing about corporate business. I felt out of place and overwhelmed." He looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. "But I learned. Every day I studied. I asked questions. I worked late. I was determined to prove that Mr. Maxwell hadn't made a mistake in hiring me." Darnell sat up straighter in his chair. "I believe I've shown that language skills alone aren't enough for this role. You need cultural understanding, relationship building, and problem solving. I've developed those skills and I continue to grow every day." He looked directly at John. "If given the opportunity to stay, I would focus on expanding our international reach. I've already identified 5 potential markets where our products would do well. I would also like to create a training program for our staff to better understand international business customs." John nodded, looking impressed. He turned to the others. "Comments or questions?" One of the board members, an older man with white hair, spoke up. "Mr. Washington, your results speak for themselves, but I'm curious. What has been your biggest challenge in this role?" Darnell thought for a moment. "Gaining credibility," he said honestly. "Some people see my background and assume I don't belong here. I've had to prove myself in every meeting, every interaction." The board member nodded, seeming to appreciate the candid answer. Kate from HR spoke next. "How has your perspective as someone from outside the corporate world benefited the company?" "I see things differently," Darnell replied. "I don't assume the usual way is the best way. For example, our approach to the Brazilian deal was too formal and structured. I suggested a more personal approach, building relationships first. That made all the difference," Greg added. "That's true. Darnell's approach saved that deal when it was about to fall apart." John looked at his watch. "Well, I think we've heard enough to make a decision." He looked at Darnell. "Could you wait outside for a few minutes while we discuss?" Darnell nodded and left the office. He sat in the waiting area, his future hanging in the balance. Had he said the right things, would they keep him on? What would he do if they didn't? After 15 minutes that felt like hours, John's assistant called him back in. The board members were gone. Only John, Kate, and Greg remained. "We've made our decision," John said, his face serious. Darnell held his breath. Then John smiled. "We'd like to offer you a permanent position as International Communications Director, with an increased salary and expanded responsibilities." Relief and joy washed over Darnell. "Thank you. I accept." "Excellent," John said. "Now about that big idea I mentioned a few months ago. I've been thinking about your journey from construction worker to corporate executive. It's an inspiring story." "I wouldn't call myself an executive," Darnell said modestly. "That's exactly what you are now," Kate corrected him. "Your new position comes with executive status and benefits." Darnell was stunned. "From construction worker to executive in 6 months? It seemed impossible. Here's my idea, John continued. I want to create the Maxwell Opportunity Fund, a program to identify talented individuals from non-traditional backgrounds and give them opportunities like the one you received. Greg handed Darnell a folder. We've drafted a proposal. The fund would provide education, mentorship, and job opportunities for people with exceptional skills, but no formal qualifications. And we'd like you to help lead it, John added. Your story would be the inspiration. You would help identify candidates and mentor them through their transition. Darnell opened the folder and read the first page of the proposal. The goals of the program aligned perfectly with his own journey. This could change lives, Darnell said softly. It already has, John replied. Yours, your mother's, your sister's. Now imagine multiplying that impact. I'm in, Darnell said without hesitation. 100%. 2 months later, Darnell stood on a stage in the company's large conference room. The room was filled with Maxwell Technologies employees, board members, and reporters from business magazines. John Maxwell stood at the podium, announcing the launch of the Maxwell Opportunity Fund. Today we begin a new chapter in our company's story, John said. A chapter about recognizing talent wherever it exists and giving people the chance to reach their full potential. John gestured to Darnell. I'd like to introduce the inspiration for this program and its first director, our international communications executive, Darnell Washington. The crowd applauded as Darnell approached the podium. He was nervous, but prepared. He had practiced his speech many times. 7 months ago, I was working construction on what will be our new headquarters, Darnell began. I was speaking different languages on the job site when Mr. Maxwell overheard me. That chance encounter changed my life. Darnell told his story simply but powerfully. He spoke about his mother, the librarian who encouraged his love of languages. He talked about the challenges of balancing work and family responsibilities. He described his fear and doubt when first offered the corporate position. The Maxwell Opportunity Fund will look for people like me, Darnell explained. People with unusual skills, remarkable abilities, or fresh perspectives who just need a chance to prove themselves. After the speech, many people approached Darnell to congratulate him. Some were reporters wanting interviews. Others were employees sharing their own non-traditional backgrounds. One young woman, a janitor at the company, quietly told Darnell that she was a math genius who had never been able to afford college. Darnell gave her his card and asked her to email him details about her skills. You might be our first candidate, he told her with a smile. That evening, Darnell visited his mother at her new care facility. The rooms were bright and clean, the staff was attentive. His mother had made friends with other residents. I saw you on the business news, Evelyn said proudly. My son, the executive. Darnell laughed. Still feels strange to hear that. Not to me, his mother replied. I always knew you were meant for great things. As Darnell drove home that night, he thought about how much had changed because one person took a chance on him. John Maxwell could have walked past that day at the construction site. He could have heard Darnell speaking different languages and thought nothing of it. Instead, he stopped, listened, and saw potential. Now Darnell would do the same for others. He would look for talent in unexpected places. He would give people chances they might not otherwise get. And perhaps years from now, those people would do the same for someone else. One chance encounter had started a chain reaction that could change countless lives. All because someone stopped to listen when a construction worker spoke 9 languages.